Okay, I am back with a new video and a new background. Ba-bow. I am once again super excited and once again super sweaty. Once again, really excited to get into the weeds of this video, and I'm just going to jump straight into it. So, I have a bit of an issue with the way the word cinematic is defined, or not even defined, but used on social media. Whenever I hear the word cinematic thrown about on the internet, or just talked about, thrown about might be a bit of a harsh way of saying it, I feel like it is used in very general terms. So I think people generally use the word cinematic to refer to whether something looks good. And when I'm talking about cinematic here, I'm talking about moving imagery. I'm not talking about still images or any of the other elements of the filmmaking process. I'm just purely talking about moving image cinematography. So it's generally used as a catch-all for good looking imagery. And the reason I have an issue with that is because if we're talking about the narrative filmmaking field, and what I mean by that is not just more traditional short films or feature films. I'm talking about brand films as well. I'm talking about documentaries, short documentaries, and those films can be obviously narrative brand films, but they can also be documentary brand films. And there's a lot of content that's out there, even if it's not necessarily explicitly saying it's storytelling. It is, it's still trying to tell some kind of a story with visuals, along with the other elements that come along with filmmaking, obviously sound and etc. So if we're talking about this field, then for me, you cannot talk about something that is cinematic without directly referring to story. Story is the most important thing. Story comes first and everything filters down from there. So for me, if we're using the word cinematic, I think that has to directly relate to, directly serve the story. And for me, if we're talking about imagery that directly serves the story, that means any imagery can be cinematic. It doesn't necessarily have to look good. It just has to serve, it needs to serve the story. There are a bunch of videos on social media that talk to the technical elements of cinematography and how to make your footage cinematic. So how to go from amateur to cinematic footage in 5 steps or 10 steps or 15 steps. And I am cool with discussing the technical elements of cinematography. It is super important. It's a large chunk of what you need to have as part of your skill set to be a cinematographer, because it is a technical discipline. It's partly a technical discipline. However, what I don't hear people talk about so much on social media is using cinematography, using visuals to tell a story. And what I'm talking about here is visual storytelling. The reason why I think we don't hear about visual storytelling as much as the technical elements of cinematography is because it is very subjective. Even if I am the filmmaker making the content, I might have an idea of why I'm creating the visuals, what I want my audience to feel, what I want to say when I'm putting my visuals together. But that is not necessarily what the audience will take from the film. So I understand that because it is very subjective, when we talk about visual storytelling, it's not as easy to talk to. It's not as black and white as, put the camera on the shadow side, pull your subject out from the background, layer your image, have salt and pepper in the background. These elements will all make your images generally look nicer. But the juicy part of cinematography, the part of cinematography that makes me feel excited about, and I really want to learn more about, and I want to start putting more into my own work, is the storytelling element of cinematography. And that's what this channel is about. It's about me creating short, mini films that I can make, learn from, and move on, and make more, and make another, and make another, and make another, and make another. And because I am a cinematographer by trade, these are the elements I'm going to be looking to really hone through my journey. I hope to also touch on other elements of the filmmaking process. But visual storytelling is something I'm really passionate about. And that's essentially what this long ass video, I didn't realize it was going to be this long when I first recorded it. This is actually this part of the recording I decided to do after my original recording. I originally recorded this video weeks ago, but I thought this was super important to talk about and fit in nicely with the subject matter of the video. So with my cinematography, in terms of storytelling and visual storytelling, there are three elements I'm looking at. One, I can't even say do. I can't even speak. One, do the visuals serve the story? Two, do the visuals move the story forward? Do they progress the story? And when I talk about visuals, I'm talking about the cinematography, obviously. Three, what emotion am I looking to convey through or via my cinematography? So those are the three elements. I kind of feel like the serving the story and moving the story forward kind of can get melded and mushed together a bit. But essentially, those are the elements I'm really looking at when I'm putting together the cinematography for my films. So this video is going to look at a different way of defining cinematic, and we're going to look at that through the lens of, see what I did there? Look at that through the lens of visual storytelling. I am going to break down, do an overview or an analysis or critique, whatever you want to call it, whatever I want to call it, of a film I recently made called Night Shift. And this is a short mini movie, basically, which is more looking at a more contained, almost like a scene within a film, rather than the traditional narrative structure of a more fleshed out short film. So check out Night Shift up here or up here. I'll also leave the link in the description. Probably worth checking that out before you watch the breakdown, the cinematography deep dive. I'm going to call the previous recording that I made, I'm going to call the Neil in that recording Original Neil. So I'm going to hand over to Original Neil, and he's going to take you through the analysis, breakdown, critique, however you want to call it, of Night Shift. Yeah, so over to you, Original Neil. So this is my analysis video for a vignette film I recently done called Night Shift. I remember the name of it. And this is me working completely as a solo filmmaker. You'll see I acted in it. I directed it. I did everything. I edited it. I did all the posts. I did all the production. The first thing I think I did wrong, my first mistake in this whole process, is I didn't define a specific emotion or a specific feeling that I could hang this whole film on. I think it would have been easier for me to do that. I have thought about that in retrospect, and I think the feeling is fear, and fear of failure in particular. In hindsight, I think I should have really have defined the emotion beforehand. I could have hung the whole film on that, or come back to that emotion anytime I felt like, oof, is this really on the right track? But yeah, we live and we learn. Sorry in advance if this chair is super squeaky. then yeah, my bad. But we move. This is the end frame from the first shot. The idea of this scene is that I wanted to have an element of isolation. I was trying to set up a situation where I felt like I could be hypnotized, vulnerable to being hypnotized by YouTube essentially, and drawn in. And you can see here, so I've got some other chairs around me here, and that signifies, you know, other people working in the office, and there's obviously another monitor here. Signifies that it shows you that other people work in the office, but I'm only working there at this point of time. So that's obviously leans into the element of isolation. And obviously it's at night as well, so I thought that has a little bit more suspense and a little bit more mystery about it. And also I like dark and moody stuff. I also at the start I also enter the frame. I come through the door, which is that this door here. This is the studio I shot in, by the way, and I will soon to not be in this studio, so I'm glad I actually end up shooting in this, because we're going to have to move on, but that's a story for another day. I walk into the shot, and I also thought that was quite a good way of kind of showing the feeling of isolation, because where has that person been? Has our character been here all day and also is now there all night? Has he been working away all this time, you know, and have there other people been there in the morning earlier on in the day? We don't know, but I just wanted to lean into that feeling of isolation. One thing I didn't really like, and it's more of a technical how thing, is that up here, not that I didn't like it, I felt like this was quite plain and white wallish, so it didn't really kind of have the right kind of mood visually that I was going for. I really like hard light, so I tried to break this up when I was filming this, and it just didn't work. But I ended up bringing that part of the wall, this part of the wall, I think, down in the grade, and I think it came out cool. It came out well. So yeah, overall, I'm quite happy with this shot. Yeah. So let's move on to the next. So shot number 2, I think this is my favorite shot in the whole film. The feeling I was going for with this shot is being hypnotized, being pulled in, being sucked into the computer almost. And what I really like is, let me get the pen up. I really like is these reflections in the glasses. This is this wide lens. I think it's a 24, and it's actually quite stopped down. I think it's a f4 or 5.6. I really love those reflections in the glasses. It kind of like feels like you're being consumed by this monitor. And then I really like the reflections in my eyes. If you can see them there, that's really cool as well. Those elements in of the cinematography, I feel really make it feel like I'm kind of like being consumed, gobbled up by this monitor. And also what I really like about it is I've got a really big wide for the first shot, and then I jump right in and got this really tight detailed shot which is wide as well. And that's one thing I really wanted to do is, or two things I can mention with this shot is, I wanted to shoot this with wide lenses very close up to the character, because I wanted that feeling of proximity and feeling close and feeling, I'm hoping that will mean that the audience feels, is more subjective and can feel what the character is feeling a bit more, because we're so close, because we're so tight and in there and close with the character. And the other thing is I wanted to feel the environment. I wanted to feel the office. It's very personal film for me, and I wanted it to be very grounded in this office. You can't really see it so much in this shot, but I kind of move on to some other shots. But this is shot at an f4, f5.6. I think I've shot the majority of the film on either a 24mm or a 35mm at 2.8 or higher. There's only one shot, I believe, that is on a different focal length of 50, and there's two shots that are at f2. and the 50 is one of them. But yeah, this is a good example of, being, the style of cinematography I was going for, really, like immersive, really like close, really subjective kind of vibe. You suppose you can't see the deep depth of field, but yeah, it was, trust me. What I don't like so much about this shot is the use of a scratch light. I'll talk about this a little bit more in some of the later shots, but generally I don't like to have a hair light if I can get away with it. I feel like using a hair light or scratch light can feel a little bit lit, and I quite like a more natural feel. My preference is I'd rather like the background than like, use a scratch, even though there's a natural scratch here. I'm happy if it's a natural scratch, but I'm not into like putting using a light to hair light or scratch if I can get away with it. And you can see here, this scratch, it actually works quite well for this shot. But later on in the video, I'll talk about some shots where this doesn't play as nicely for me, cinematography wise. But something that I'd like to improve with this shot is, I'll circle it here, is these reflections in the glasses, because they're not both the same or similar sizes. This reflection is a lot bigger than this reflection. Ideally, the reflections would have been a little bit more uniform, but that was a blocking thing. And that was definitely a situation where it didn't help me as a solo filmmaker, because it was really hard having the camera so close up, still be able to get focus on both eyes, and then like jamming the camera in between me and my desk. Ideally, I would have had a more uniform look to this reflection. I think it would have sold the vibe of like being, pulled into the monitor, being hypnotized a little bit more. But these are the compromises you have if you're doing everything on your own. In terms of the feeling and the vibe and the emotion of it, I'm feeling this frame. So the next shot, here I'm on the old mouse with a little ball. This shot moves the narrative on quite nicely. It leans into that idea of being hypnotized, because I used the sound design with the shot before, layering it in the shot before and into this shot as well, of the scrolling on the mouse, and it kind of gets louder and louder and louder. My intention was for that to lean into, the idea that I'm being hypnotized and I'm kind of like just almost on autopilot here, scrolling. Once again, a wide shot very close to the character's hands. This shot is done day for night, and so I'm quite happy that I managed to get the vibe and the feeling. I don't think it feels out of place. I mean, I specifically chose shots that were like this, that are more close-up shots that I knew I could make look like they were shot at night. What I'm not so happy about is, I'm going to go to this the pure raw cinematographer in me here. I have up here is a bit of tape that I stuck on the lamp, and you can see it there, which is kind of bugs me. The cinematographer in me is kicking myself, but it's not so bad really. So on to the next shot. I'm split with this shot. I feel like it does move the story on. Again, it leans into that kind of, I keep on saying it, it feels like I'm hypnotized saying it, but that kind of idea that I'm being hypnotized, I'm being grabbed, I'm being consumed by YouTube, being online and watching videos. The thing I wanted to delve into with that is that I have loved YouTube for a long time, and I watch a bunch of YouTube, but I never make anything for YouTube. I'm the ultimate consumer, and it's the idea of like the consumer element of YouTube. I'm watching videos and watching videos and watching videos, but not balancing that with actually doing some of my own videos. Watching videos to learn stuff and make myself, obviously entertainment as well, but I watch a lot of filmmaking and camera based stuff, lighting tutorials, etc., all that kind of stuff. Most of my subscribed channels are filmmaking based, but I until now I've not made any content myself, so it's kind of leaning into that again, that fear of, okay, well, if you're consuming so much, then why don't you add to the conversation? Why don't you actually become someone making content rather than consuming it? Because I'm too busy being hypnotized, exactly like this. The other thing that I like about this is this is me. Like, I do this. I like sit at my laptop and watch YouTube videos. And I have, this is definitely my vibe sometimes with the whole microwave meal. Nice. What I didn't like so much about this shot is it feels like from a technical cinematography standpoint, it doesn't feel as layered as I like it to. These 3 shots are a simple way of showing the passage of time, or time going by. And I think it's fairly effective for that. But in terms of technical cinematography elements and having layers, I've got this shot up now, and this is the same shot, but a different time of day. It's obviously sunset. It's really, really, really nice. Oh, it doesn't fit the mood that I was going for, that kind of nighttime mood. So it wouldn't have, squeak, squeak. It wouldn't cut in with the final film I made. But I just want to draw attention to this, and there's a building behind here as well. So these, I'll make a full circle with that. So these 2 buildings, when I put the frame up, I was like, oh cool, like it's got quite a bit of layering. I wanted to see out of the window, or on the top floor here is like the views are really cool, and it adds a little bit of depth if I can get those lights and layers in the background. The lights from, as long as the lights are on in the tower, the buildings, you will be able to see them and therefore get more depth. But what happened was, when the sun went down completely and it was nighttime, you couldn't see the lights in those. You couldn't see the lights in those 2 buildings. In fact, you can't see the lights here, and I didn't notice it because classic Neil Francis. But also, again, one of those things when you're solo filmmaking, you don't necessarily notice these things because you're just trying to get through it at points, just trying to get through the night, a very hot night. And you don't notice these things, but there were no lights on those. Well, I couldn't see any lights on in those buildings. So it meant that the final images I got lacked the depth I was going for. So going back to these 3 shots, you can see how, like I was saying, you can see that you can only see the lights in this building, which was the middle building. You can't see the lights that would have been in this building or this building behind here, which means that I don't get as much depth to the shot. I think if I had more time and I had the resource, I would have tried to cheat everything up, get a bit higher. But I think the lamp would have had to go higher as well. And some of these things, maybe the desk might have had to go higher if it looked a bit weird. That's an arrow, by the way. And if I'd cheated everything up, I would have seen a bit more of the skyline to get layers. But I was kind of disappointed when I saw this, but actually I'm kind of getting used to it. And also I'm looking at telling a story and more about the emotion involved. And I think it does its job. What I will say though is technically with cinematography, this is what I'm talking about, and I'm going to draw it so you can see it. This is what I'm talking about when I was earlier in this video with the very tight shot of the glasses. This is the scratch. This is the backlight that I purposely put in because I was thinking, oh, it's dark back there. I want to cut myself out and I want to add dimension. No, Neil, don't do it. It's good to know that that's my taste. It's good to know that, if I was to do that again or the project's going forward, I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to let it fall off the darkness. And you never know. It might be that I curse it and say, it's not, it looks like I can't, everything blends in. So it just looks like a floating head, or maybe I should have added a little bit backlight or hairlight, but I should have gone with my instinct. And I think that is, actually, that is one of the main things I learned from this is go with my instinct. I feel like what the images I've got are close to what I had in my head. They're not perfect by any means. They're never going to be perfect. But in terms of my taste, the imagery I like, and what I was able to get, I think it's fairly close. So another reason why it was really good to do this, and I'm really glad that I did it, because it's given me that confidence. Sometimes being in this industry, making content, making videos, I can't speak to filmmaking so much because I haven't done it, so it's a lot of it, but you can start getting in your own head, which is basically, this is what this film is about. You can start doubting yourself. It happens all the time for me. And before doing this short film, I felt in my own head. I felt quite down because I wasn't doing anything creative. I wasn't doing the kind of work that I really wanted to do. And this gave me the opportunity to do it. I gave myself the opportunity to do the kind of work that I like to do. And even though it's not exactly what I had in my head, it's pretty close. So it's given me that confidence now to be like, do you know what? Even if you didn't do that job as well as you wanted to on a paid job, or it didn't come out the way you wanted to do, it's not because you haven't got the ability. It's because of other factors. And it's not that I don't need to work on myself, but at least I know I can do this, and I got this, and I can create images that, I think are okay. I don't dislike. They're all right. And I'm just going to point out something else with this. So actually, and this will go more to why I should be more positive about these shots. These 3 shots, 1, 2, 3. I initially did these shots on the same day as I did the big wide. And I've got them here. Show you. So here we go. So these are the shots. These are the shots I initially did for that scene. This is the framing I had, and this is the shot. I looked at these shots afterwards, and I was like, "This is no good," because of the blocking of the wide, and because of the way these tables were situated right against this wall here. I couldn't get the lighting where I wanted it to be. It just ended up being this really toppy source. It was, and I ended up cheating myself around this way so you could see both eyes. Otherwise I was going to be in profile, and I didn't want that. I didn't want to be I wasn't hiding. That wasn't the emotion I was going for. It wasn't supposed to be a sinister thing. It's not supposed to feel like, you're not supposed to feel like something's going to jump out and get you. It's more about you, like I said, being drawn into the screen. And I don't think it helps having this this screen here as well, and this is weird. This gapping here, this whole frame is, and then this deadness here as well. This whole frame, no, Brian. I'm actually really happy that I redid this shot. I took a whole nother day to redo these shots. Yes, they were technically better with the cinematography, but they also told the story better, I think. This is much better framing. These are much better framing. And it tells the story again. I really like this, the reflections on the glasses and stuff. That tells a story. And also what I quite like is this screen. Yes, it adds depth, it adds layers, but it also is quite ominous in the frame. It's also quite big, which I quite like. I only just literally thought about that. So yeah, mainly happy with these frames. On to the next shot. This is the same as shot number 3, I think. Frame number 3. As I said, it's my favorite frame, I think, in the whole film, for all the reasons I mentioned already. What I will say about this, story-wise, is that later on in this film, I take my glasses off, and I didn't make much of that, taking my glasses off and putting them down as part of the narrative. And I actually think that I could have made more of that. I think maybe I could have done with another shot in here, actually showing me putting the glasses down, because thinking about it, what that represented is losing clarity. physically your eyes are blurred, but also we're getting into a state where we're going to be, he's going to fall asleep, and we kind of got this build up of imagery which kind of suggests that we're in a dream world, and this is the start of that. And I think that that's quite important for the film and getting me into this dreamscape and all the things that happen during that part of the film. And I think I could have made more of that. I kind of only thought about that in hindsight. It was much more of a practical solution initially, because with the dream sequence, I did it on green screen and I was getting really bad reflections in my glasses. So I thought, I'll just take them off. But actually it worked quite well within the narrative of the film. So I think I would have accentuated that more and had an extra shot of me putting the glasses down. So the next frame, this was another day for night. So I think it works quite well. Another frame where obviously, again, close, wide lens close to the character and close to my hands. Also deeper depth of field, so I could get, get the pen on. I could get as many of these keys in focus, and also my hand was moving back and forth. So I wanted to be able to have that in focus enough as I was typing on the keyboard. This is another shot which I did a bunch of other versions and I didn't use them. I ended up using this frame because it worked better in the narrative, being able to see the keys and see my hands, etc. But yeah, I'm glad actually I landed on this because the other frames weren't doing it. So yeah. Next shot is, it does what it says on the tin. Yes, it was day for night, so I think again it works well in the sequence. Doesn't stick out. I don't think it does. One thing I will say is that let's do the old pen. You can see here that we're losing focus on these on this text. So I think it would have. I should have had a deeper depth of field or reframed so all the text was in focus. But yeah, it does a trick. Yeah, so on to the next. So this shot, again, yes, it moves the story forward. I'm happy. It's basically a version of the other keyboard shots. However, I would have preferred to shoot this with a macro lens just to accentuate the action and make it a bit more dramatic. I mean, having something like this kind of frame, even though it's a square, not a rectangle, something like this kind of frame. Let me do a rectangle because that makes me feel better about my life. Something like this as a frame would have looked a bit better and I think would have been a bit more dramatic. But, you know, I think I did a little punch in post on this just because of that. And I think maybe, is this a little bit out of focus? Anyway, I think it's okay. Get the idea. And that's maybe a little bit out of focus, so maybe. So maybe I could have done my job properly and actually had my hand in focus, but hey, solo filmmaking. That's what I'm going to do. I blame everything on solo filmmaking and not the fact that I am bad at cinematography. And pretty bad at storytelling, to be fair, probably. This shot is the thumbnail, and I do really like this shot. This is the only shot that used a 50mm, anything tighter than a 35. And initially with this shot, I wanted to have the screen fill the whole frame, you know, and it being like you're getting swallowed by the screen, and getting kind of consumed by YouTube. But it didn't work. That didn't work. And actually I quite like this frame I've got in the end. It's like a frame within a frame. It's got this kind of like frame within a frame vibe going on. Let's go here. So I quite like that. I also wanted this to feel a bit surreal. You can't see any of the, I mean, the lamp would have been, that I motivated from would have been here. It's a lamp, by the way. Whoop. Would have been here. That's a lamp. and the fan would have been here as well, and you would have seen the wall. The why behind this shot is that it's almost a bridge between being awake and being asleep. I wanted it to feel surreal because the next shot is a dream sequence, so I wanted it to feel like, you know, I'm kind of falling into falling asleep essentially without me physically, falling asleep. I think this does this quite well, and that's the reason why I've gone on the longer lens, 50mm, and this is an f2. This is one of, I think the first shot was an f2, but that's just because I didn't have enough level. But this is one of the only shots in the film that is below an f2.8. So yeah, I'm really quite happy with this. Let's move on. Okay, now this shot was an absolute pain in the arse, and this shot got me almost lying down and crying. Lying down, not even lying down, sitting down with my hands in my head in my hands, just crying more than once, at least twice. So this is the second version of this shot. I'll put the other version I had up so you can see. The reason why I didn't use that version is because that version was shot on a green screen, and the reference image for this was from BlacKkKlansman, the Spike Lee film, and it's the speech. It's a speech that's given, and you've got all these people watching the speech, and they're kind of like picture in picture. And it's got a real nice feather around each person, and it's really cool. But what I didn't know is that YouTube does not like gradients, and it doesn't like dark gradients. So I had the whole film done and I uploaded it, and I looked at it. I was like, what is this? This is fresh hell. It's macro blocking. It's got artifacts all over the place. It was horrible. And that was like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock at night. And I honestly, I almost threw my computer out the window. I need a new computer as it is. My computer's on its last legs, and it was tough. It was tough. But I actually think that doing this scene again and redoing this, I ended up doing this on a black backdrop in the end, and I actually think it works okay. It's still got the issues of it being dark. Gerald Undone talks about YouTube not liking darkly lit or dimly lit scenes. I'll put the link in the description, link of the video in the description, because it was really helpful for me. He talks about compression and what's the best codec to use to export your video so it looks, as good as it can be on YouTube. I knew YouTube's compression was bad, but I didn't know it was to this level. And you'll see on the video, if you have it bright enough, you'll see the artifacting. So I really wanted to have this cooler feel to this shot in particular, because I wanted it to be quite binary, quite objective, as opposed to more the subjective nature of the rest of the film, where you're close and you're very in the face of the character. Because of the nature of this scene, I wanted it to feel almost black and white, quite cold and less human almost. And it doesn't have any film grain on it. I graded this in Dehancer, by the way. Great application. I feel like film grain adds a organic texture to the footage, which is a bit more human, almost a bit more organic, because it's almost, this is how I see it. The grain is almost like an imperfection within the image, and that makes it more human, because obviously humans, we're not perfect. But yeah, I still have problems with this setup. Twice I did this. I don't know. It didn't almost break me. It broke me. But yes, in terms of the purpose of this scene, it's a dream sequence. It's very much self-explanatory. I did get the vibe I wanted to get across. The lighting, I think I got in a similar ballpark of my reference, which was BlacKkKlansman, like I said, the Spike Lee film. But yeah, this was super tricky. It ended up looking a little bit like a very, very, very shit version of one of the shots in the Kendrick Lamar Humble video, where they're all like and you've got a bunch of heads just bobbing. But this ended up looking like a very shit version of that. But look, I got through it. And I think it moves the story along well. In terms of the dialogue, I am not great with dialogue. I'm not a director. I'd like to learn more about directing, but the main reason why I shun away from directing is because I am terrible with verbal communication. I don't think I'm very good with it. And the whole like nuance of like, you know, the subcontext of what someone's saying. And that's not really me. I like visuals, you know. I initially thought Night Shift was going to be a film which was going to be essentially a silent film. Yes, it would have sound design and all those kind of things in it to bring it to life, but I didn't want to have any dialogue in it. I didn't initially think of having any dialogue in it. It was just me chatting rubbish, really. I mean, it's probably, it's cringe, but maybe someone finds it funny. I'm not a funny guy, so probably not. I talk about this film being about fear and the fear of failure. It's also just as much about me getting out of my own head. I overthink everything, and it paralyzes me at times. I don't want to create something that's not very good. I'd rather not create anything at all. But that's no good. I have to, you know. It was really frustrating me. I needed to get my creativity out, do something creative. And also, how do you learn? You know, like there's only so many YouTube videos you can watch, and it never substitutes. Watching a YouTube video will never substitute you actually doing it, making films, doing your own thing, doing the kind of stuff that you want to do. Even watching someone in person, I don't think can substitute for you taking it on and actually getting your hands dirty and doing filmmaking, being a filmmaker, making films. Just to explain the dialogue, the way in which the dialogue comes across in this scene, I really wanted to talk to how convincing your inner voice can be, my inner voice can be. And my feeling was that if I was too normal Neil, I mean, still weirdo, but normal Neil, then it wouldn't, then the inner voices wouldn't be so convincing. I think there's an element of, you know, there's nothing more subjective than you talking to yourself in your head or to a camera for YouTube. But it's so funny how the things we say in our head, not funny actually, it's quite tragic sometimes, depends on what you say to yourself. But it's weird how what you say to yourself can end up becoming your reality, even though it's super subjective. So it becomes this really, it can become this very objective thing, even though it's just your thoughts. It's the most subjective thing there could be. So what I wanted to do is make sure that these voices were self-assured. They really believed in their own view, you know, and they were vying for my attention. So that's the reason why I had the Jamaican accent, the patois going on. I've got, my patois is terrible. I don't know how it just came out. I mean, yeah, I really wanted it to be convincing, and I wanted those two sides of the coin, the two perspectives, to really believe in themselves, believe in what they were saying. This is the final shot of the film, and what I wanted to convey in this shot is that there's a decision to be made. Am I going to believe the voice in my head that was telling me that I was no good and I couldn't do it, or am I going to believe the positive voice in my head that was telling me I can do it? And what I like about this is that I've got this split lighting to convey that. I've got another video on my channel which is kind of like an intro video to me and my channel. It's basically mimicking this frame for a good purpose, to say, yay, spoiler. Yes, I did do the YouTube channel. In filming that video, I realized this is the 35mm. It's a f2, yes, but it's a 35mm. So I'm glad. I thought there were two shots that were on a 50mm, but no, there's only one, which is the computer monitor shot. So yeah, I'm really happy with this this shot. It is, again, it suffers from if you watch it on, if you watch it bright enough on YouTube, maybe you don't even have to watch it that bright, you'll see some artifacting in my shirt, because it's quite low light. It's got a bit of noise in the image, but I wanted to kind of push that and make it, quite down and low key. And this is a great example of not putting a scratch or an edge. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Like, this kind of cinematography is where I'm at. Do you know what I mean? And I know you want to do light to dark to lighter to I don't know, to light to light to dark to light. I mean, maybe this should have been a bit lighter, this side of the image, to really add more salt and pepper. But I really like this. I really like the starkness of it. I mean, my acting's terrible. I look like I'm a serial killer or something. But in terms of what I wanted it to convey, that kind of split decision, will I, won't I think it does it all right. I think I did a decent job of this. All right, that's it. Done, dusted. Analysis done. Critique done. There are some other elements in there, but I was gabbing for so long. I'm going to have to edit this down, and I'm really hoping it's going to be a decent length, because boy, this could go on and on and on, and that's no good for anyone. But I'm really happy I did this analysis. I think the main stuff is in there, and I really enjoyed doing it. I really enjoyed doing this, and on to the next, and hopefully, you might want to join me for the journey. But yeah, until next time, I'm gone.